Hello and welcome to day 3 of Pension Awareness Week. I'm John Sherlock from MyCSP and I'll be your host for today's webinar. Joining me today we have Catherine Murray, Training and Engagement Manager from MyCSP, Emily Wilson, Senior Training Consultant from MyCSP, and from Cabinet Office we have Andy Jones, Engagement Manager for Civil Service and Royal Mail Pensions. We know that pensions can seem complicated, so today is all about building a solid foundation on which to plan your future pension and retirement planning. If you're a new joiner, we'll go through a checklist of essential things you'll need to do, and we'll be explaining transfers in, the Alpha scheme itself, and some of the tools available to help you start your retirement planning. We'll also be looking at some of the improvements that have been made to the pension portal, which is a starting point for your pension planning journey. You may notice that we've changed the format of today's session, and instead of asking specific questions to the panel, you'll be asked to vote on a range of topics that you'd like our panel to discuss later on. We've done this based on feedback from attendees of our previous sessions, and it means that our panel will be able to answer the most frequently asked questions on the most popular topics. Okay, so without further ado, we are now going to jump straight into today's session. And to begin with, we'd like you to tell us which topics you'd like our panel to discuss later on. So that survey should be on your screen now, and just please choose 2 topics from the list. Whilst you're doing that, I'd just like to remind you to give us feedback on today's event. You can do that by completing the short survey that will be emailed to you later today. Your feedback really is important to us as it helps us to improve and tailor these events. So please do take the time to complete it. Finally, if you do have a specific question or a problem with your pension that isn't covered in today's session, I would urge you to consider taking part in one of our Pension Power training sessions. Pension Power is a 1-hour webinar delivered by pensions experts. It's completely free and it's designed to help you get to grips with your pension. If you'd like to know more about Pension Power, please stick around until the end of today's session. Okay, so before I hand over to our first speaker, we're going to launch our second poll of the day. And the question we would like you to answer is, before today's session, had you heard of Pension Power? Okay, so that's before today's session, had you heard of Pension Power? That survey is going to be live for the next few minutes, so please do let us know your answer to that one. Okay, so without further delay, I'm now going to hand over to the first speaker. Catherine Murray. Take it away, Catherine.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, John. So yeah, my name's Catherine. I'm from MyCSP, the Training and Engagement Manager. And my team and I are responsible for delivering things like Pension Power sessions. So something that we're going to do today is we're just going to talk you through some of the basics that you need to know. Just trying to get the right presentation loaded. So just bear with me a second while I get that sorted. There it is. It's just hiding at the very end. So there we go. And we can get underway. So yeah, so this is just designed to give you sort of a bit of an introduction, everything you need to know about your pension. So we're going to talk about the Alpha scheme, which everyone is enrolled into when they first join the civil service, and what you need to know about the key facts when it comes to Alpha. We'll talk about your options for transferring in. So if you have pension benefits with another scheme that you've built up somewhere else, then you may be able to transfer those in to the civil service. We'll talk about how that works. We'll talk about the partnership option. That's the alternative pension scheme that's available. If you don't want to stick with Alpha, you've got the option to go into partnership instead if you prefer. And then we've put together our new joiner checklist. So just things that you should think about when it comes to your pension as a new joiner to the scheme. We'll also give you some information on how you can stay up to date as well. So everyone who joins the civil service, although certainly the vast majority of people, will be enrolled into Alpha from their first day of service. So if you don't take any other action, you'll be a member of the Alpha scheme from day 1 of joining the civil service. You do have that alternative option of partnership if preferred. So I'll talk more about the differences between them and how that works. And what you should receive is a starter pack from your employer on first joining the scheme. So that's issued to you via email, and that just gives you some basic information about how the different schemes work, what your options are, and actions that you can consider. So the key differences between Alpha and partnership: Alpha's a defined benefit pension scheme. And that means that there's a predetermined formula that we use to calculate the pension that you can expect to receive at retirement. And that also means that there's no risk attached with Alpha. You know exactly what you're going to get back in the future. There's quite a safe, comfortable way to save for your retirement with those predetermined calculations. Partnership, on the other hand, that's a defined contribution pension scheme that's based on investment performance. So the money that's paid into partnership is invested in the stock market, and it's the performance of the investment that will influence what's available as a sum of money to buy you your pension benefits at retirement. So it is more risky. We can't predict exactly what you're going to get back in the future, but of course there's lots of potential for growth if your investments perform well, particularly if you're joining the scheme very early, and then it's going to be invested for quite a long period of time, building up a high level of pension benefits for the future. So looking back to Alpha then, how exactly does that work? So in Alpha, we look at your pensionable earnings each year that you are a member of the scheme. So Alpha is called a career average scheme. You receive a proportion of your earnings each year as annual pension. So we look at your earnings over our scheme year. That's from the 1st of April to the following 31st of March. And that's your actual earnings. So if you do work part-time, it'll be a proportion of your part-time earnings. If you're full-time, your full-time earnings. And anything you earn in addition to your salary that's pensionable, for example, some allowance payments might be pensionable, then those will be included in your pensionable earnings as well. The accrual rate in Alpha is 2.32%. So you accrue 2.32% of your earnings each year as an annual pension. And then every 1st of April, the first day of each new scheme year, we apply an inflation adjustment to all of the benefits you've built up in the scheme so far. So we make sure that the pension you're accruing throughout your career is consistently revalued in line with inflation, so it's not going to lose its value over time. So let's just have a look at how those benefits build up in Alpha. So we've just put it together as a bar chart here, which I think is a good way to explain how the benefits increase. So in your first year as Alpha, you'll accrue 2.32% of your earnings in that year as annual pension. So we work out how much that value is. We carry it forward into year 2, and then it's immediately adjusted in line with inflation. And you'll then go on to get 2.32% of your earnings in your second year as well. We then add those three values together, carry them forward into year 3, and the total amount is adjusted in line with inflation. So that inflation adjustment is applied to all of the benefits you've built up so far, including last year's inflation adjustment. And your pension will just continue to stack up and grow in that way, as long as you remain an active member in the Alpha scheme. So let's have a look at the contributions that are paid into Alpha. So employee contributions are dependent on your pensionable earnings, and you'll pay somewhere as between 4.6 and 8.05% of your earnings as your personal contribution towards your pension. And then your employer on your behalf makes a contribution of somewhere between 26.6 and 30.3% of your earnings. So the vast majority of the contribution towards your pension comes from that employer contribution, which is really generous. Your employer is paying 4 or 5 times more than you do as the contribution towards your pension. So Alpha is a really good scheme from that benefit, with really generous employer contributions being paid. So you build up pension benefits in Alpha, but you do have the option to give up some of the pension that you've accrued in order to take a tax-free lump sum at retirement if you would like to. And we have a pension exchange rate of 1 to 12. For each £1 of your pension you give up, you'll receive £12 of tax-free lump sum at retirement. There are some maximum limits to that. So there's a limit to how much of your pension pot can be taken as tax-free lump sum. And in the civil service pension scheme, we'll pay you up to the tax-free element. We won't pay you any taxable lump sum at retirement. The pension benefits that you've built up in Alpha are payable to you from your state pension age. So for most members, that's somewhere now between 66 and 68. But you do have the option to access your Alpha pension benefits earlier than that if you would like to. You can currently take your Alpha pension benefits anytime from the age of 55 onwards if you would like to. But if you choose to do that, then a reduction is applied for each year early you decide to claim the pension, to account for the fact that it's going to be paid to you for a longer period of time. If you have pension benefits held with another scheme somewhere else, you can look at transferring those into the civil service pension scheme to boost your alpha benefits, but you do have to choose to do that within your first 12 months of joining the scheme. So if you have been in the scheme for longer than 12 months, that's an option that will no longer be open to you. You have to do it. There's a very strict 12-month window in terms of making that transfer happen. And it's not a case of you just have to have inquired within the first 12 months to make the transfer. So it can be quite a lengthy process. You would need to get in touch with MyCSP, the scheme administrator, let us know that you're interested in transferring in. And with your authority, we can then contact your previous scheme and get a quotation for the value of those pension benefits. We'll tell you what that's worth transferring it into alpha. And at that point, you need to sign a declaration to confirm if you would like the transfer to go ahead. That is the stage of the process that needs to be completed within your first 12 months of joining the scheme. And that can take several months to arrive at. So if you are new to the scheme and you are thinking about it, don't delay when it comes to transferring. Make sure you take action on that as soon as possible. So Alpha provides pension benefits on the death of a member in the form of a death benefit lump sum and continuing dependent pensions as well. So the death benefit, the lump sum that's payable should a member die in service, is generally 2 times a member's pensionable earnings, or roughly speaking, 2 times a salary that's payable as a death in service lump sum. And you can nominate anyone at all to receive that lump sum. So it doesn't need to be a relative if you don't want it to be. There's no age restriction if you want to nominate children. You can nominate an organisation or a charity if you prefer. And also it doesn't all have to go to one person. So you can split the lump sum between multiple people, either in equal proportions or different proportions. It's entirely up to you. It is really important that you do make a death benefit nomination. So in the event of the death of a member, if there is no nominee that's held for them, the lump sum is still payable, but would form part of a member's estate and would take a lot longer for that money to reach anyone. As long as there's a valid nomination in place, then that money can be paid very quickly in full, generally with no deductions, normally within a couple of weeks. If you haven't made a death benefit nomination yet, that's one of the first things I would recommend you do following today's session. The easiest way to make your nomination is on the pension portal. You can nominate on there and that is immediately valid. We'll be giving you some more information about the pension portal later. But if you aren't registered yet and you think I'd like to do that now, there's also a form available on the Civil Service Pension Scheme website in the member forms section. So you can search for member forms on the Civil Service Pension Scheme website and you'll find the death benefit nomination form in there. So in addition to the death benefit lump sum, we have dependent pensions. So on the death of a member, a pension can be payable to a surviving spouse, partner or civil partner, as well as pensions also being payable to any dependent children that a member has as well. So there's no action you need to take in advance to make sure those benefits can be paid, unless you are someone who has a partner, so someone that you're not married to or in a civil partnership with, but you live with as if you could be married or in a civil partnership if you wanted to be. While it's not mandatory, we recommend that a partner details form is completed in that scenario, and it just ensures that should the worst happen, then it's easier for those partner pension benefits to be paid out. So you'll find that form on the member forms page of the Civil Service Pension Scheme website as well. So you've got an ongoing pension to a spouse, partner or civil partner, and then children's pensions payable as well. And children's pensions are payable until your children reach the age of 18. Can be payable up to age 23 if your child go on to university or some other kind of education, or could be payable for the rest of your child's life if they had some kind of disability which prevented them from working themselves. But again, there's no action that you need to take now to nominate your children on the death of a member. We just gather the information to find out who any potential beneficiaries are and take things from there. So we've looked at Alpha. Let's have a look at the alternative choice of partnership. So we mentioned Alpha is a defined benefit scheme where there's a predetermined formula that's used to calculate your pension benefits. But partnership is our defined contribution scheme where contributions are paid in and those contributions are invested. And it's how the investments perform that influence what you're going to get back at retirement. There are different investment options available to you. So Legal & General look after our partnership scheme and the investments that take place. There is a default investment fund that you can join if you opt for partnership. So if you don't want to have any say in where your money is invested, you'd rather someone else look after it for you, then that option is available. But there are choices that you can make if you prefer to have more of a say in where your fund is going to be invested. So for example, you could go for a high risk fund where there's more potential for growth, but obviously more risk attached to that as well. Or you can go for a safer fund, which people tend to do the closer they get to their retirement age. And then there are different options. You can look at ethical funds, for example. So if that's something that's important to you, then you've got that choice to make as well. So you can take a approach where everything's looked after for you with the fund that Legal & General recommend, or you can do it slightly differently if that's what you prefer. The fund that you build up in partnership, you can use in different ways when you do come to retire and access your pension. So you have flexible access options available. So your options will include things like buying an annuity at retirement, so regular pension income that will be paid to you every year. You can take the entire fund that you've built up as a one-off lump sum if you want to, although only 25% of that would be tax-free. The rest of it would be taxable, and that would wipe out any other pension savings that you had in the partnership scheme. Or you can go for things like flexible drawdown options where you can take regular payments on a tax and tax-free basis, some of those as a lump sum, some of those as continuing pensions, and take multiple payments at different times until your fund runs out. So you've got a lot more flexibility over how you claim the pension benefits that you build up in partnership. And something that's really attractive to members about partnership is the fact that member contributions are entirely optional. So your employer will pay a contribution in a partnership on your behalf, and that is somewhere between 8 and 14.75% of your earnings. But your personal contribution to partnership is entirely optional. You can choose to pay anywhere from absolutely nothing all the way up to 100% of your earnings. It's entirely up to you how much you pay in. But your employer will pay in on your behalf. And then if you do decide to contribute, they'll also match your contribution up to a further 3% of your earnings as well. So there's still a really generous contribution being paid into partnership by your employer, but it isn't as much as the 26.6% minimum they're paying into Alpha on your behalf. If you're interested in partnership, there's lots more information available on the Civil Service Pension Scheme website, including the switch form, if you would like to go ahead and switch across to partnership. And you can switch across at any time that you like. You just need to give your employer 2 months notice of your intention to switch schemes, and then they'll put that into place for you. And if you opted for partnership and then somewhere further down the line, you decided it was no longer the better option for you, you've still got the opportunity to switch back and then rejoin Alpha if you prefer. So it doesn't have to be a permanent move. You might want to try it out for a year or two, see how your investments perform, and you've still got the option to switch back to Alpha in the future if you would like to. And that's just confirming those employer contributions to partnership I just mentioned. So your employer will pay somewhere between 8 and 14.75% of your earnings, and then they'll match your earnings up to a further 3% if you decide to contribute. So looking next then at our new joiner checklist. So if you're just starting in the civil service, you started a new job, a new career, it's likely that your pension might not be that quite high, not that high on your agenda of things to think about. But it's really worth taking some time out to find out a little bit more about your civil service pension nice and early, get engaged from day one, and you could really reap the benefits of that in the future. So if you know that we speak to a lot of people on the training sessions we deliver, and they say things like, I wish I'd known this 25 years ago, I would have done things a little bit differently. I wish I'd appreciated the benefits that I had because I didn't quite understand how it all works. So it's really important to find out more about your pension as early as possible to make sure you can get the most for it. Retirement might seem like a really long way away, but believe me, it just comes closer and closer every single year. And before you know it, it's actually not that far on the distant horizon. So it's definitely worth putting some time in nice and early to find out a little bit more. So this is the new joiner checklist we've compiled with just a few things for you to consider. So return your completed starter pack to your employer. So Do return that. It asks for some information. For example, let us know if you're interested in transferring pension benefits in from somewhere else. If you're interested in perhaps making additional contributions towards your pension, there are some options. Those will be covered in our sessions tomorrow on boosting your benefits. If anyone's interested in joining one of those, we can watch them on catch up in the future. Make your death benefit nomination. Like I mentioned earlier, that should be one of your first priorities coming out of today's session. Obviously, hopefully it's not something that will ever be needed, but just a nice bit of security to know that that nomination's been made and everything is in place should the worst happen. Register for the pension portal. I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about that later in today's session, but do make sure you get on the portal. That's where you'll find your annual benefit statement, which will be sent to you each year. And you can also use the retirement modeler on there as well and project what your future pension benefits are going to look like. And you can make your nomination on there, which is the easiest way to get that done. You attend a pension power session. So John mentioned pension power sessions in the beginning. There are 2 different versions available. I'll talk to you about in a second. When you first joined the scheme, will dictate which of the 2 choices is the best one for you. And the retirement modeler available on the Civil Service Pensions portal, so you can project those future pension benefits like I just mentioned. So we have 2 different versions of pension power. The original version, the red version, is aimed at anyone who's joined the Civil Service Pension Scheme at any time. So if you've been in service for quite some time, it's likely that the original pension power version will be the best one for you. If you've joined in the not too distant past, so maybe in the last 2 or 3 years, then the new joiner version will be the best version for you because that just talks about alpha and partnership. But you've been in the scheme for longer and you were previously in one of the other pension schemes, such as Classic, Classic Plus, Premium or Nuvos, then the original pension power version we would recommend. And it's a 1-hour session that just gives you all of the basics, all of the things that you need to know about your civil service pension. But we don't want you to just take my word for it. So we've got a recorded video now from Louise Ibbotson, HR manager at DWP, and she's going to tell us why she thinks pension power sessions are so great and why she recommends them for members of DWP.
Firstly, I would like to say that it's great Cabinet Office are funding these free sessions to our members right across the board. I personally feel over the last few years we have really engaged more than ever, especially when it comes to members understanding their pensions. Pension power is an opportunity for members to feel supported. It also includes all our new joiners and allows the younger generation to engage at an early stage. I would like to say thank you to all the members who have attended and supported pension power. When I first started my role, I always remember someone saying to me, Louise, make sure you understand your pension. Think about the future and ask yourself one question. What is my salary when I retire?
Thanks, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that video that just does a little bit more to sell what the benefits really of attending a pension power session are. So just to finish off this little bit of my presentation now. So we mentioned the retirement modeler. So this is a really good tool that you can use through the pension portal to project your future pension benefits. So the annual benefit statements are issued to you every year and they're calculated to the 31st of March. And they give you the value of the pension benefits you've built up so far. Once you've received your first annual benefit statement, you can then use the retirement modeler. And what that does is it projects what your pension benefits would look like if you continued working in your current job until your retirement age. So this is just a snapshot of what you would see. So this has defaulted to a retirement age of 65 for this individual, and it shows they'll have a pension payable at that age of £12,414. But we have the 2 slider bars, so the retirement age should set to 65, but you're able to drag that down and show retirement anytime from the age of 55. We can slide it up and look at retirement anytime from up to age 75 and see what difference working to those different ages makes to the pension benefits that you would accrue. And then you've got the second slider bar for your lump sum. It's currently set to 0. But you can slide that all the way up to 100% of the maximum tax-free lump sum available. to see what those pension benefits would look like. You'll have a reduced pension and then the tax-free lump sum that's available to you. So it's a really good tool to help with your retirement planning. And like I say, you might think, well, retirement's such a long way into the future, I don't need to think about it now. But it's definitely worth just having the rough basis of a plan in place, just something about think, well, when would I actually be able to afford to retire? How much pension will I have? Do I need to maybe consider doing something differently? You know, if you think that pension doesn't look like it's going to be enough to keep me in the kind of retirement I'd like to lead, then maybe that's when you can start thinking about paying something additional towards your pension. And obviously, if you start doing that nice and early, you can do it a lot more gradually. So it's not going to have such a big drain on your finances. So something to think about, make sure you're informed, and then you can make some really good decisions for the future. And then just to finish off, so just about staying up to date. So do make sure you do check your annual benefit statement when you receive it on the pension portal every year. Like I say, it's calculated to the 31st of March and then loaded online to the portal by the 31st of August each year. And then you can revisit the modeler each year once you've got that statement, and that will pick up any changes to your pensionable earnings and your working pattern and things like that. The Civil Service Pension Scheme website is full of a full range of information with everything you should really need to know when it comes to the Civil Service Pension Scheme. And make sure you keep your death benefit nomination up to date. And if you're looking at the information on the Civil Service Pension Scheme website and you think, I just want someone to explain this to me so it all makes sense, then that's where Pension Power comes in. And that's where you can really find out more information. And so a pensions expert will explain everything to you. And one other little shout out just before I hand you back to John, the Civil Service Pension Scheme podcast. We launched that a couple of months ago and it's really good just to get you thinking about your pension. And one of the episodes is about why it's important to think about your pension in your 30s. So if you think I don't need to be thinking about this right now, maybe just have a listen to that podcast. It's available on all of your main podcast platforms, as well as being available on the scheme website. And just spend 20 minutes just listening to us talk about the things that you need to think about. And maybe that might just put things into context for you a little bit more. I'll be back later. That's everything from me for now. Back to you, John.
Thank you very much, Catherine. That was really helpful. Thank you. And thank you also to Louise from DWP. We're now going to take a very quick look at the results of the polling question, which was, before today's session, had you heard of Pension Power? Well, I can tell you that the results are in, and 71% of you said that you hadn't heard about Pension Power until today. However, I'm sure that now you do know, you'll make it a priority to book yourself onto a session, especially after hearing from Louise from DWP. To book a session, all you need to do is go to www.mycsp.co.uk/pension-learning/member-learning. If you click Pension Power, you'll see a list of upcoming courses. So please do go to the website and book yourself on. Catherine also mentioned the new joiner checklist, which we fondly refer to as a pension passport. You can download the pension passport from the scheme website at civilservicepensionscheme.org.uk. And if you just search for pension passport in the search engine in the top right-hand corner, you'll be able to find that. Okay, so you will have noticed that another poll has now appeared on screen, and the question we'd like you to answer this time is, have you registered for the pension portal? That's, have you registered for the pension portal? Again, that's going to be live for the next few minutes, so please do let us know your answers to that one. Okay, moving on. We are, as Catherine said, we're going to go back to Catherine now for the second part of the session. And Catherine's going to be walking us through some of the changes that have been made to the pension portal, which will make it easier for people to use it and to register and log into it. So it's back over to you, Catherine.
Thanks, John. Back to me again, everyone. Sorry about that. You've got lots of FaceTime with me today. So I've just got another very short presentation this time just to talk you through some information on the pension portal. So I'm just waiting for my screen to load. It's gone black temporarily. Hopefully that's going to fix itself. Here we go. So we've listened to feedback from members, and we've had quite a lot of people who tell us that they've had difficulty registering for the pension portal in the past. So we've recently made some changes to it to make it easier to get online and get on the pension portal. But it's a really good tool. We've had it since 2019, and it just means that we're sort of moving things into the 21st century and having everything live and in one place. So you've got all that you need to plan for your pension for the future. So like I mentioned before, on the pension portal, you can view your annual benefit statement and they're loaded every year. So if you're just registering now and you've been in a scheme for a few years, you'll see your annual benefit statements back to 2019. And then that allows you, again, to use that retirement modeler that we just had a quick look at before. So you can plan for the future and see what your future pension benefits are going to look like. And it's important to just play around with that and feed that into your retirement plans in terms of what you think you're going to need to live the kind of lifestyle in retirement that you really want to. You can update some of your personal details on there. So the vast majority of your personal details, when you update them with your employer, will be updated with the Civil Service Pension Scheme. But you can update some of your basic details on there should you need to. And like mentioned before, again, you can update your death benefit nomination as well, should you need to. So when you log on to the pension portal, you'll see a screen that looks something like this. So the blue box takes you to your annual benefit statement. And what that will do is it will show you your pension you built up so far as a bit of a snapshot. But it also has a button on there, so you can click on that to download your full statement. So you can read the full details that are available for you. If, for example, you prefer to read things off a page rather than off your screen, you can download your benefit statement, then print it if you prefer. If you want to make some notes on it and maybe read through all of the important notes that are included, you might find it easier to do that. Or you can just read everything on the screen, download a version that you can keep hold of and refer back to in the future, perhaps without logging back into the portal. And then the pink box takes you to the retirement modeler. So it's pre-populated with all of your information. The modeler will default to age 65 and will give you the snapshot of that pension, of your pension benefits at that point. And then you can use that slider bar to change the age. If you've got a retirement age in mind, for example, and you can look at what your pension benefits are going to look like at that particular retirement age. And then you can say, well, if that's not sufficient pension for what I think I will need in retirement, then you can obviously look at making the age change. Or then you've got those options to perhaps boost your pension if you want to make sure you can retire at your chosen age. So different options available, which will all be informed by using that retirement modeler. Also on there, like we mentioned, you can make your death benefit nomination. So you can change that at any time. And it is really important that if your circumstances do change, you make that change to your nomination. Also worth noting, if you're someone who was, for example, previously a member of the Classic scheme, and has moved into the Alpha scheme quite recently. If you're formerly in Classic, then Classic members could only have one single nominee. But in Alpha, you can have as many nominees as you like. So if that was restricting your choices and you could only have one single nominee, then you're now able to nominate multiple people if you would like to. So you can make those changes. And like I say, if your circumstances change, make sure you update your death benefit nominee accordingly. So what's changed when it comes to the registration process? So previously we used to ask you for a registration code and a personal identifying number that you would only find on a copy of your annual benefit statement, which if you hadn't received a paper copy before things went paperless, then obviously that made it quite difficult. Now the only things that you will need to register are your national insurance number, your date of birth, the name of the employer that you work for, and then you'll need to have a mobile phone handy as well, as we will ping you a verification code to get you online. So those are the only bits of information that you will now need to register for the pension portal. So that should make it an awful lot easier. And if you're already registered on the portal before these changes came into effect, just need to log in and it'll slightly change things for you as well, but it should be nice and straightforward. That's just going to make the whole process for everyone a lot easier. So you can get on the portal nice and quickly. You shouldn't need to contact the scheme. You shouldn't need to get any information from anyone that you don't already have immediately to hand. Expectation would be that obviously you know your own national insurance number and date of birth. So nice and straightforward, much easier to get online with the pension portal. But if you do need additional help, then you can look at the registration guide that's available on the Civil Service Pension Scheme website. So if you're not registered on the portal as of yet, then just make sure that you take some time out to do that. Check out your benefit statement, use the retirement modeler, and make sure your death benefit nomination is all up to date. Okay, and that's it from me for now. I'll pass back to John.
Thanks, Catherine. Really helpful again. So we're just going to have a little look at the results of the polling question, which was, have you registered for the pension portal? So I'm pleased to say that more than half of you have said that you are already registered for the pension portal, which is great. It's fantastic news. I think even more importantly, though, that 15% of you said that you plan to register after today's session, which again, fantastic. So thank you. And that leaves 17% who aren't yet registered. So if you are one of the 17%, there really is no excuse. Please go and register today. Okay, so we're now going to go to the polls for the final time, and the question we would like you to answer is, what do you think of the changes we've made to the pension portal? What do you think of the changes we've made to the pension portal? Please give us your answers to that one. Okay. So we are just over halfway through today's session. I hope you've enjoyed it so far and found it useful. For the next 20 or 25 minutes or so, we're going to now look at the frequently asked questions relating to the subjects that you voted for earlier. So to begin with, we'll just look at the polls and see which two subjects we'll be covering. So the most voted for subjects are managing your pension and lump sums. Okay, so we're now going to go to the question to the panel. We're going to put the first question to Andy. And the first question, Andy, it's around lump sums, and it's, what lump sum options do I have from the civil service pension schemes?
Great, thanks for that question, John. Hopefully I will be able to answer it clearly and concisely. First thing is, with Classic and Classic Plus, you will get an automatic lump sum. You can give up some of your pension to receive additional lump sum as well. For those in Premium, Nuvos and Alpha, you can give up some of your pension to receive a tax-free lump sum as well. There is a limit to that, which is 25% of the overall value of your pension. So yeah, they're the HMRC limits as well. So the great thing is you don't actually have to work it out. If you're going through the retirement process, your maximums are provided to you, what pension you could get, lump sum that you could get. And you can choose any lump sum in between all them. The modeler that Catherine showed us before also has those limits built into it as well. So you can really manage the amount of pension or your benefit makeup that you want to as well. Hope that helps, John.
Thanks, Andy. Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you. Okay, so the next question is, how does the lump sum work? Is it a like-for-like withdrawal from my pension? And Emily, we're going to go to you with this one.
Thanks, John. Hi, everyone. So how does the lump sum work in terms of the withdrawal from the pension? Well, the conversion rate for it is 1 to 12. So that means that for every £1 of annual pension you give up, you'll get £12 tax-free lump sum. So £1,000 of annual pension given up would get you £12,000 tax-free lump sum. The Classic scheme comes with an automatic lump sum, just remember, of 3 times the annual pension that you accrue, but you can then take kind of extra lump sum from that up to the maximum limits. And it's the same conversion rate there as well, 1 to 12. £1 of pension gets you £12 tax-free lump sum. But as Andy said, there's a calculator on the website which does all of that for you. Obviously, you could try and do that manually if you really wanted to, but the tools are there to help you and to kind of remove that need for you to do them manual things yourself. So make sure you go to the calculator and check it out. But 1 to 12 is the basics of it.
Thanks, Emily. Next question, Catherine, is the maximum lump sum shown on the retirement modeler always tax-free?
Thanks, John. So certainly for the vast majority of members, yes. So the civil service pension scheme will only pay you tax-free lump sum. There are other types of pension scheme out there that will pay you taxable lump sum at retirement. We only pay you tax-free lump sum. So the figure shown on the retirement modeler is always tax-free. The one exception to that would be someone who might be going to breach HMRC's lifetime allowance. That's the overall limit on how much one individual can have in pension savings from all sources. HMRC's lifetime allowance is currently £1.0731 million. So it's quite a large number. That means that, unfortunately, for the vast majority of us, that's probably not something that's going to be an issue, but so it does affect some of our members. And something that's worth noting is your annual benefit statement shows what proportion of your lifetime allowance you've used up so far, with the benefits shown on your statement. So you can refer to that. And if you're perhaps getting close to the 100% bracket, you might need to consider that there could be some implications on your lump sum at retirement. If you're quite far away from it, like the vast majority of people will be, then it's not really something you need to be concerned about. And that lump sum shown on the retirement modeler will be tax-free when it comes to retirement. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Catherine. Next question, Andy, I'm going to come to you with this one. One of our members has asked, can I access my lump sum early and gift it to someone?
So to access your lump sum, you have to take some kind of retirement action, whether that's normal retirement or partial retirement for something like that. Once you've done that, you can have your lump sum paid, and you can pretty much do with it what you want. There are certain tax rules about what's called pension recycling, which is quite deep into tax legislation, but you can pretty much do with it what you want. In relation to gifting part of your pension, there isn't actually an option for some people called allocation, where you can actually give up some of your monthly pension, in essence, to another person to give them a pension when you die. So, for example, one of the scenarios where you may have a seriously ill relative, disabled child, something like that, and you want to make sure they're provided for in addition to the child's pension that is payable, you can forgo some of your pension to set up a pension for them in the event that you die before that individual, and their pension can be paid for them. But to purely answer that question about taking your lump sum early, yes, you can, as long as you're accessing your pension at the same time, and then you can do with it what you want. Well, that helps, John.
Thanks, Andy. Okay, so we've got about 15 minutes left, 20 minutes left. So we're going to have a look at some of the questions in the under the managing your pension topic now. Catherine, the first question is for you. And a member has asked, I can't seem to find what I'm looking for online. How do I get in touch?
Okay, thanks, John. Well, yeah, if you can't find what it is that you're looking for and you need some additional support, you've got a couple of different options available. So you will find contact us details for the scheme available on the Civil Service Pension Scheme website. So there's a contact us section. It's in multiple places, but if you scroll right to the bottom of the screen, then you should see all of the details there. There's a phone number, there's an email address. But maybe if you're not getting the information that you need, you might also want to consider one of the Pension Power sessions that we've championed today. So take some time out to attend one of those. And someone will explain things for you, and you've got the opportunity in those sessions to ask questions live to the pension expert who's running it for you. And that will include them giving you lots of useful links to where you can find information on the website. So you can use the contact us details, send an email, give a call to our inquiry centre, but you might find a Pension Power session delivers the information that you need as well. So there's dates available online if you'd like to consider booking one of those as well. Thanks, John.
Thanks very much, Catherine. Brilliant. Andy, can I choose to pay more into my Alpha pension, and is it worth it?
Yes. I'm joking. Yes, you can pay more in. There are a few ways you can go about doing that. Most commonly is a thing called added pension, where you pay additional contributions in, or you can pay one lump sum in each year, and that buys you extra pension in this scheme you're a member of. The second one is a thing called Civil Service Additional Voluntary Contributions, or for short, CSAVCs for short, and that is where you pay additional contributions into a defined contribution scheme, which is then invested in wherever you wish it to be invested, and that builds up a separate pot of cash that you can claim on when you decide to retire. One thing I would add, with a CSAVC, there is a risk associated with it. As for whether or not it's worth it, that's completely up to you. One of the things that I always recommend whenever I speak to members is have a think about that lifestyle that you want when you retire. There are a lot of tools out there which will predict and project what your what pension income or retirement income that you might need when the day comes that you want to retire. Use your ABS, use the retirement modeler again that Catherine spoke about and showed us before to project forward what your pension's going to be. If you have any other income from elsewhere, which you have for retirement, pull that all together and think, right, will that give me the lifestyle that I want and need when I come to retire? And then if it doesn't meet it, then you might need to think about and consider taking out things like added pension, CSA VCs to meet those expectations that you want for your retirement income and lifestyle. Hope that helps, John.
That's great. Thanks, Andy. Okay, this next question, this is quite a broad question, and I'm sure that the answer has already been provided during today's session. But Emily, for anybody who still isn't fully aware of what the pension portal is, can you answer this one? What is the pension portal?
Thanks, John. Wow, what a question. Okay, so the pension portal is a platform that members of the civil service pension schemes can use to see their own personal information. You would need to register online. As Catherine said before, we've got a new registration process now following feedback to make it easier. What you can see on there are things like your latest benefit statement, your death benefit nomination, the personal details that we hold for you. So you can check to make sure that all of your information is up to date on our systems. It's really important that you check over your benefit statements because that information on there needs to be right in order for the pre-populated retirement modeler to then be reliable in terms of figures. And you want to make sure that's all up to date and correct before your retirement so that can go, as smoothly as possible. So that's a really, really important part of it. So benefit statement, death benefit nomination, your personal details, and then the retirement modeler that we looked through before. And I think that just single-handedly is the best tool that we kind of offer at the moment for planning with retirement from your civil service pension. Like Catherine said, it gives you projections, it factors in early retirement reductions. You've then got the 2 sliding bars to play around with your figures, and to do that really easily. We get a lot of feedback about the modeler that it's surprisingly easy to use considering how advanced of a tool it is. So it's basically your one-stop shop for all things your civil service pension, and it's really important that you get registered.
Thanks, Emily. Emily, is there any support or information about how a member can register for the pension portal?
Thanks, John. Yeah, there is. So we've got a guide for how to do this on the website. It's just launched, and there's actually a how-to video as well. So if you're anything like me, you're more of a visual learner, you want it to actually be shown how to do it. So we've got a video for that on the scheme website. There's also, people that you can speak to in our pension power sessions. So the new registration process is explained in the pension power session as well. And as Catherine said, what's great about the pension power sessions is if you've then got questions about the information, you've got a pension expert there and then to ask the question to. So I'd say go to the page on the scheme website first, check out the video, and then if you still need help, jump on a pension power session with one of us. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Emily. Catherine, do you offer any support, or I suppose does the scheme offer any support for those wanting to learn more or struggling to understand their pension? I know you've covered a lot of this today, but could you just give a brief overview of what your recommendation would be to anyone who's still struggling to understand their pension?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the important thing with pensions is a lot of people just think, I just don't understand it. And then they have this kind of mental block and they just go, well, I don't understand it. And they almost don't even try to understand it. And what my team and I do in things like pension power sessions, pre-retirement sessions, all those kind of things, is just put things in really simple terms to make it as straightforward as possible for it to understand. And I think there's often a lot of things that you might not even considered that you need to think about that will be covered in those sessions. So it's just a really good starting point to get you on the right track with your pension. And again, things like the pension podcast just does that in a different way. So if you don't want to learn in sort of what seems like a classroom setting, then you can listen to some of those pension podcasts. There's a series of 6 of them with different topics. And if that's a way that you would prefer to learn, then you've got a different method of doing that. And you can do that on your commute to work, or, in the morning before you start, or on your lunchtime, or whatever it might be. and you'll just have someone put things into context with your pension so it comes across as like a real life scenario. So there's lots of different methods available for you, but the whole sort of way we operate is to try and make things as simple and straightforward as possible. Pensions seem quite complex, but it is possible to break these things down and make them nice and easy and simple to understand. And that's what we find that members appreciate about the sessions that they attend and the feedback that we get. So yeah, lots of different options available, which we've already told you about, and you'll find information about all of them on the Civil Service Pension Scheme website. Use the search box, search for Pension Power, search for the Pension Podcast, and you'll find a really good starting point to get to grips with your pension. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Catherine. Some great tips there. Brilliant. Emily, a member's asked, this is a question relating to retirement age, and I don't think we've covered this today. The member has asked, what happens if I leave the scheme before retirement age?
Thank you, John. Yeah, so leaving the scheme before retirement age, isn't completely uncommon. It's something that we see. It could go in one of two ways, really, depending on how long the service is that you've had up to that point. So if you leave with at least 2 years continuous service, then you have qualified, we call it, for an actual pension at the end when you retire. So your pension would then become preserved. So it would be with us on our records, preserved, but changing with inflation over the years. And it's based on the same type of inflation as all of the rest of it, CPI, so Consumer Price Index. And it's just kind of sat there ready for you to claim it basically down the line when you want to. And that could be at the normal pension age for the scheme or early retirement. You've still got the option of early retirement, even in deferment, which is good. And the usual early retirement reductions would come into play. If you leave the scheme with less than 2 years continuous service, then you're going to get some different options. So if you leave with more than 3 months, but less than 2 years, then you will be sent a quote with the option of a contribution refund. And that would be just your member contribution refund, also taken off the tax relief that you had at the time that you made them. Or you can do a transfer to a different type of pension scheme. So that'll all be laid out for you on a quote with figures for what each of them two options would mean. If you leave with less than 3 months service, then you won't get the option of the transfer. You will just get a refund of your contributions. So just to summarise that, I think all in all, you need to have at least 2 years continuous service to then have a preserved pension at the end when you leave. It'll be preserved, changing with inflation, CPI, ready for you to claim it, which you get all of the normal retirement options, such as early or waiting until your normal pension age, and you can still take a maximum lump sum as normal as well. So hope that helps.
That's great. Thank you very much, Emily. We're going to move on to have a little look at transfers, the issue of transfers. And this is obviously a hot topic for people that are new to the scheme. Andy, what's the Public Sector Transfer Club? What's the Public Sector Transfer Club?
Great question. I'm surprised anyone knows what the Public Sector Transfer Club is. The Public Sector Transfer Club is, as it says, it's an agreement between all of the public sector schemes that are out there, so civil service, armed forces, the police, NHS, things like that. And basically what it means is there is if an individual moves from one of those schemes into another one of those schemes, so any other public sector scheme, there is basically a reciprocal agreement that they will get pretty much like for like terms for that transfer. It's better than basically coming from what's called a defined contribution scheme, like a private scheme. There is agreements already been made around the factors that have been used, and the value of things can go up or down. Basically, it's if you transfer from one scheme like the teachers into the civil service pension scheme, you'll get pretty much a like for like transfer. That's a very basic explanation of what the Public Sector Transfer Club is. It's a great question, whoever put that. Brilliant,
thank you. Thanks, Andy. We've got about 2 minutes left. I think this might be the last question of today. I'm going to come to you, Emily, with this one, and it is, am I able to transfer a private pension into my civil service pension? And if so, is there a deadline for when I need to request a transfer?
Thank you, John. So transfers, this is another topic that we hear a lot about at the moment. I think everyone's talking about it. You can apply to transfer any type of scheme into Alpha. And then the schemes will kind of liaise with each other to sort out all of the, the dots and the crosses of the T's. You can apply to transfer a private scheme and any type of scheme, but it has to be done within them first 12 months. If you miss that window, you won't get that opportunity again down the line. So it's really important that you at least just look into it at the point that you can. So you would need to contact us to arrange for us to get in touch with this previous scheme. We would kind of liaise with them back and forth. We would calculate you a transfer in value in terms of what that would convert to in the Alpha scheme, and we'll send you out a quote. You then decide at that point whether or not you want to go ahead with it. So you're not obliged at that point, but you make the choice at that point. And that form that you sign and return to accept it is what we need back within the 12-month window for the transfer to go ahead. So it's not just the initial expressing of interest stage. We need that signed accepted form. So yeah, hopefully that answers it. Like I say, just go through the motions of getting a quote, and then you can decide from there whether or not you want to go ahead with that. Thank you.
Thanks, Emily. Just continuing on that theme, could you tell us if a member leaves the scheme, are they able to transfer the civil service pension into another scheme?
Thanks, good question. Yes, they are. So again, the type of scheme that it can be transferred to, this kind of carries on from the question that I answered before, the one that we've just done. So if you leave with at least 2 years service and you've qualified for a preserved award, you've got a deferred award with us, you could transfer that out if you wanted to down the line, but it can only go to another defined benefit scheme, basically. Legislation states that you can't transfer a deferred defined benefit scheme out to a defined contribution scheme, basically, which, remember, defined contribution are the ones that are based on investments and tend to be private sector employers. So it can go to another defined benefit scheme. If you leave with less than the 2 years continuous service we were talking about before, you haven't actually qualified for a preserved pension at that point. And so that rule of it only being able to go to a defined benefit scheme won't apply in that instance. So under 2 years, it can go to any type of scheme. Over 2 years, it could only go to another defined benefit scheme.
That's great. Thank you very much, Emily. So I think that is all the time we have today for questions. So thank you very much to our panel. I think we got through quite a few there, which is great. Thank you very much. We're now going to have a look at the results of our final polling question, which was, what do you think of the changes we've made to the pension portal? And great news, 97% of you, so unanimously, you have said that you like them, which is great. Fantastic. Great news. So it's even easier to register, log in and use the portal. Okay, so we're nearly out of time, but before we go today, I'd just like to mention once again the pension podcast, which we've mentioned a couple of times today. And as Catherine said, it really is a great way to find out more about your pension. Series 1 is out now, and episodes include a Pensions 101 episode. There's an episode on life events, which includes how getting married, divorced, having children can affect your pension. And of course, there's a retirement episode, which features the case study of a real life member. So if you haven't downloaded it or listened to it already, I would strongly recommend that you do so. You can download it on any major podcast platform. Just simply head over there and search for Civil Service Pensions Podcast. And if you do that, then please remember to subscribe to be notified about future episodes. So we have some really great episodes dropping in season 2. So please do look out for those. So that is it now. I think we are just out of time. So as mentioned earlier, please do let us know what you thought about today's session by completing the short survey that will be emailed out to you later today. And thank you very much for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye from everybody here.